On the night of his 7th wedding anniversary, Michael Hart came home carrying white roses and a speech he had practiced in the car. He was ready to apologize. Ready to admit that he had become a stranger in his own marriage. Ready to tell his wife, Grace, that he did not want their love to die quietly. But the house was dark. Dinner was untouched. Her wedding ring was lying on the kitchen table. And beside it, her phone was playing a video. Michael pressed play and watched his wife kiss his best friend. For almost a minute, he could not move. He could not breathe. He could only stare at the screen while the two people he trusted most destroyed him in silence. Then he saw the note under the phone. "Before you hate me, ask Ryan what he did 7 years ago." That was the moment Michael realized the kiss was not the whole betrayal. It was only the first door. And behind it was a secret that had been living inside his marriage since the day it began. Michael Hart had bought the roses because he did not know what else to bring. 7 years of marriage had taught him many things, but not how to repair silence. Not the kind of silence that grows slowly between two people who still sleep in the same bed, still pay the same bills, still ask, "How was your day?" while already knowing the answer will not matter. He and Grace had not had a terrible marriage. That was the part that made it harder to explain. There had been no screaming, no thrown plates, no dramatic nights where someone walked out and slammed the door. Their love had not exploded. It had thinned. It had become short replies, unfinished conversations, and evenings spent in the same room while both of them looked at different screens. That morning, Grace had kissed his cheek before work and said, "Don't forget what day it is." "I won't," he had answered. But he had forgotten many things before that. He had forgotten to ask why she stopped painting. Forgotten that she hated sleeping with the hallway light off. Forgotten that every October she became quiet because October was when her mother died. Small things. Human things. But love does not always die from one wound. Sometimes it dies from 1,000 moments where no one notices the bleeding. So he bought roses. White ones, because Grace once said red roses looked like apologies from men who had already lost the argument. He bought a bottle of wine too, and while sitting in the driveway, he practiced what he would say. "I know I've been distant. I know you've been lonely beside me. I don't want us to become strangers." He walked in at 7:43 p.m. The house was dark. At first he thought Grace had planned a surprise. She liked candles, quiet dinners, small dramatic gestures. But the kitchen smelled cold. The dining table was set for two, yet the food had not been touched. A single candle had burned down until wax spilled across the plate beneath it. Then he saw her ring. It sat in the center of the kitchen table. Michael knew that ring better than he knew his own hands. He had carried it in his pocket for 3 weeks before proposing because he kept waiting for the perfect moment. Grace had laughed when he finally asked her in the parking lot of a closed diner during a thunderstorm. She had said yes before he finished the question. Now the ring looked small and final. Beside it was her phone. The screen was awake. A video waited there, paused on an image that made Michael's mind refuse to understand what his eyes were seeing. Grace. Ryan. His best friend. Ryan's hand was at the back of her neck. Grace's eyes were closed. They were standing in a room Michael did not recognize, close enough to make every excuse impossible. Michael pressed play because some desperate part of him needed motion to change the meaning. It did not. Grace kissed Ryan like someone making a choice. Then the video ended. For a long time, Michael heard nothing except the refrigerator humming. Ryan had been his best friend since college. The one who stood beside him at the wedding. The one who helped him move into this house. The one who came over every Christmas Eve with bad wine and worse jokes. The one Michael called when Grace cried after her mother's funeral because he did not know how to comfort her and Ryan always seemed to know what to say. Michael grabbed the phone so hard his fingers hurt. Underneath it was a folded note in Grace's handwriting. "Before you hate me, ask Ryan what he did 7 years ago. Michael read it once. Then again. 7 years ago. Their wedding year. The year he and Grace almost did not make it to the altar because of a fight no one ever fully understood. They had broken up for 13 days. Michael wrote letters. Grace never answered. Then Ryan told him to stop humiliating himself. A week later, Grace came back crying, and they never spoke of those 13 days again. Michael stared at the note until the ink blurred. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. Don't do anything stupid. Come to my place. I can explain. Michael looked at Grace's ring, the roses in his hand, and the frozen frame of the kiss still burned behind his eyes. Then he turned around, walked back into the rain, and drove straight to the man who might have ruined his marriage long before that video was ever recorded. On the drive to Ryan's apartment, one thought kept repeating in Michael's mind: if Grace wanted him to ask about 7 years ago, then tonight had not begun with the kiss. It had begun long before their marriage started. Ryan opened the door before Michael knocked. That was the first sign something was wrong. He was dressed too neatly for a man caught in another man's disaster. White shirt, sleeves rolled, hair still damp as if he had showered recently. He looked worried, but not surprised. And surprise was the one thing Michael needed to see. "Mike," Ryan said. Michael stepped inside without answering. Ryan's apartment smelled like coffee and expensive soap. There were 2 glasses on the kitchen counter. One had lipstick on the rim. Michael looked at it, and Ryan noticed. "That's not what you think." Michael laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "I just watched you kiss my wife." Ryan closed the door slowly. "Then it probably is what you think." Michael hit him. It was not planned. Just one fast, ugly movement born from 7 years of trust collapsing at once. Ryan stumbled back against the wall. Blood appeared under his thumb. For a moment neither man spoke. Then Ryan said, "You should have hit me years ago." Michael's hands shook. "Where is she?" "I don't know." "Don't lie to me." "I'm not." Michael pulled Grace's note from his pocket and threw it onto the counter. "Before you hate me, ask Ryan what he did 7 years ago." Ryan stared at the paper. His face changed then. Only for a second. But Michael saw it. Fear. "What did you do?" Michael asked. Ryan looked toward the window. Rain moved down the glass behind him in crooked lines. "You and Grace were falling apart long before tonight." "That's not an answer." "She was lonely." "That's not an answer either." Ryan's voice sharpened. "You think love is ownership because you stood in a church and said vows. You stopped seeing her, Mike. You stopped listening. I was there when she needed someone." Michael moved closer. "Were you there 7 years ago too?" Ryan said nothing. That silence was worse than a confession. Michael remembered that time in pieces. The fight with Grace before the wedding. Her father's illness. Money problems. Fear. Pride. He had written her 4 letters because she blocked his number and would not see him. He had given the letters to Ryan because Ryan was the only one still speaking to both of them. Ryan said he delivered them. Grace never answered. Then Ryan came to Michael with a message: "She says if you love her, leave her alone." Michael had believed him because pain makes cowards of people who want dignity. "What did you tell her?" Michael asked. Ryan poured himself water, though his hand was unsteady. "I told her what she needed to hear." Michael felt cold move through him. "Which was?" "That you were tired. That you thought marrying her would be a mistake. That you needed space." Michael stared at him. "You told her I didn't want her." Ryan's face hardened, as if anger was safer than shame. "She would have ruined you back then. You were broke, desperate, ready to marry a woman just because she made you feel like a hero. I protected you. You protected me. I loved her first. The words came out quietly. That made them worse. Michael took a step back. For the first time, Michael saw not his best friend, but a man who had been waiting behind a door for years. I loved her before you noticed her, Ryan said. Then I watched you marry her. I stood beside you. I smiled in the photos. Do you know what that cost me? So you stole my letters. I delayed a mistake. You broke her heart. Ryan looked away. She came back to you anyway. Michael wanted to hit him again, but something stopped him. Not mercy. A sudden, terrible thought. If Ryan had lied back then, what was the video now? A confession? A trap? A message? Michael grabbed Ryan by the collar. Where is Grace? Ryan's eyes flicked toward the hallway. A small movement. Almost nothing. Michael let go of him and walked past. Don't, Ryan said. Michael opened the bedroom door. No Grace. But on the bed was a woman's coat. Grace's coat. Wet from the rain. In the pocket, Michael found a small recorder. He pressed play. Grace's voice filled the room, low and trembling. If Michael hears this, it means Ryan sent the video first. It means he showed you the kiss, but not what came after. There was a pause. Then Grace whispered, Michael, I did betray you. But not in the way you think. Behind him, Ryan stood in the doorway, pale now. The recorder continued. And if you want the rest of the truth, come to the lake house before midnight. Alone. Michael looked at Ryan. Ryan whispered, she's playing both of us. Michael walked out without another word. Because if Grace was at the lake house, then the night was not ending with a kiss. It was only beginning. The lake house had belonged to Grace's mother. It sat 40 minutes outside the city, at the end of a narrow road lined with black pine trees. Michael had only been there twice, once when he and Grace were newly married, and once after her mother died, when Grace stood on the dock for an hour while Michael stayed inside, afraid to say the wrong thing. The headlights caught the old house just before midnight. One light burned in the kitchen. Michael parked behind a line of wet trees and sat with the engine off. Rain tapped on the roof like fingers. He could see through the window just enough to make out two figures. Grace. Ryan. For one terrible second, the video became real again. Then Grace turned sharply, as if arguing. Michael got out of the car. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house smelled of dust, lake water, and old wood. On the kitchen table were 3 mugs. 2 untouched. 1 broken on the floor. Grace stood near the sink. Ryan stood by the window. When Michael entered, both turned. Grace looked pale and nothing like the woman in the video. A red mark circled her wrist. Michael saw it. So did Ryan. She wanted drama, Ryan said quickly. Now she has it. Grace looked at Michael. Did you listen to the recorder? Yes. Then listen to this too. Ryan laughed. Of course. Another performance. Grace ignored him. The kiss was a trap, she said. Michael's chest tightened. I found the letters 3 weeks ago, she continued. The ones you wrote before the wedding. I found them in Ryan's storage unit. Michael turned to Ryan. Ryan's face was blank now. Too blank. Grace stepped closer. At first I thought they were copies. Then I saw your handwriting. Your real handwriting. And I knew. Why were you in my storage unit? Ryan asked sharply. Grace looked at him. Because your sister called me. She said you kept a box with my name on it. She thought I should know before you moved. Ryan went still. Grace's voice shook, but she kept going. I confronted him. He said he did it because you weren't good enough for me. Because he loved me first. Because he had waited long enough. Michael looked at the man he had trusted for half his life. And you kissed him? Grace flinched. Yes. But I needed him to think he had one. I needed him to say it out loud. I had my phone recording. Ryan smiled then, slow and cruel. Tell him the rest. Grace looked at Michael, and for the first time that night he saw guilt. I didn't pull away as fast as I should have, she said. For 1 second, I wanted to hurt you the way I felt hurt. That was wrong. I know it was wrong. Ryan stepped away from the window. No, Grace. Say it honestly. For 1 second, you wondered if I was right. Grace turned on him. No. Yes, Ryan said. You wondered if the man who noticed your loneliness deserved more than the husband who helped create it. Michael said nothing. That was the knife, the possibility that Grace had believed Ryan because Michael had given her reasons to. Grace's voice dropped. You manipulated both of us. Ryan's expression cracked. I waited, he said. I waited while he forgot your birthday dinner. I waited while he let you cry alone after your mother died. I waited while everyone could see you were disappearing. Michael stepped toward him. You don't get to turn theft into love. Ryan turned on him. And you don't get to call neglect loyalty. The words hit because they were not entirely false. Grace suddenly shouted, enough. Both men stopped. She looked at Michael then, and her voice changed. Softer. More exhausted. He betrayed us with lies, she said. But we betrayed each other with silence. The sentence landed in the house like something breaking. Michael thought of all the nights he felt Grace slipping away and chose work instead of asking why. All the mornings she said she was fine and he accepted the lie because it was easier than the truth. Ryan laughed under his breath. So what now? You forgive him. You run back because old letters make him look romantic. Grace did not answer. Michael looked at her. Do you still love him? Grace closed her eyes. When she opened them, she said, I don't know what I feel anymore. Michael nodded, took off his wedding ring, and placed it on the table beside the 3 mugs. Grace made a sound like she had been struck. Michael. I came for the truth, he said. I got it. He turned to leave. Behind him, Ryan said, You're walking away again. Michael stopped at the door. No, he said without looking back. This time, I'm not walking away from the truth. I'm walking away from people who used it as a weapon. He stepped into the rain. And for the first time since he saw the video, he did not know who had betrayed whom the most. For 3 months, Michael lived in an apartment above a bakery. It was not a good apartment. The pipes knocked at night, the bedroom window stuck halfway open, and every morning the smell of bread rose through the floorboards and made him miss the kitchen he had left behind. But it was his. No wedding photos. No shared mugs. No closet divided between 2 lives. He did not go back to the house. Grace texted twice. The first message came the morning after the lake house. I'm sorry. Michael deleted it. The second came 6 weeks later. I found more. He did not answer that either. Ryan disappeared from their circle almost immediately. He left his job. Deleted his accounts. Sold his apartment through an agent. Friends called Michael with questions disguised as concern, but Michael had no appetite for being the center of a story no one understood. Some people thought Grace cheated and Michael left. Some thought Michael had always been cold. Some thought Ryan was a snake. Everyone wanted a clean villain. Michael was learning that real betrayals rarely came that clean. He started therapy because his sister threatened to drive him there herself. He worked too much. Slept badly. Replayed the video less often than he replayed Grace's sentence. He betrayed us with lies. But we betrayed each other with silence. That was the worst part. Ryan had lied. Grace had staged a kiss. But Michael had not been innocent simply because he had been wounded. Pain was not proof of purity. On the 91st day, a large envelope arrived at the bakery with no return address. Inside was a key. Not the house key. A small brass key he did not recognize. There was also a note in Grace's handwriting. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm asking you to hear the ending before you decide what story you survived. Same lake house. Tonight. 8 p.m. Michael laughed when he read it. A short, bitter laugh that made the woman behind the bakery counter look up. The lake house again. He placed the note on his table and left it there all day. At 7:12 p.m., he picked up the key. By 7:56, he was parked beneath the same black pine trees. This time, it was not raining. The lake was still. The house glowed softly through the windows. For a moment, Michael hated how beautiful it looked. As if pain could become charming when lit correctly. He approached the door. It was locked. The brass key fit. Inside, the air was warm. A fire burned in the living room. On the kitchen table were 2 cups of tea, a stack of letters, a laptop, and a small black hard drive. Grace stood near the fireplace. She looked thinner. Tired. But steady in a way she had not been that night. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I almost didn't." "I know." Michael looked around. "Is Ryan here?" "No." "Do you know where he is?" Grace hesitated. That hesitation was answer enough. Michael's face hardened. "Grace. He sent me something." She turned the laptop toward him and pressed play. The screen showed Ryan in a car at night. His face was lit by the dashboard. He looked drunk or exhausted. Maybe both. "If you're watching this," Ryan said, "then I either finally did something brave or something pathetic. Maybe there's no difference anymore." Michael sat slowly. In the video, Ryan stared ahead, not at the camera. "I kept the letters. I lied. I told myself it was love. But the truth is, I couldn't stand watching someone else be chosen. Especially someone who didn't know what he had." He laughed once, brokenly. "Grace kissed me because I wanted her to. Because I pushed. Because I told her Michael would never fight for her. But she was recording me. I knew it before the kiss ended. So I cut the video first. Sent it first. I wanted to control what he saw." Grace's eyes filled, but she did not look away. Then Ryan said something that made Michael's blood go cold. "But the lake house wasn't just her plan. It was mine too. I needed them both there. I needed them to see what I had become." The video glitched for a second. Ryan looked into the camera now. "And Michael, if you're hearing this, ask Grace about the last letter. The one she still hasn't shown you." The screen went black. Michael slowly turned to Grace. Her face had gone pale. "What last letter?" Grace did not answer. On the table, beneath the stack of old letters, one envelope sat apart from the rest. Unopened. Michael recognized his own handwriting. Grace whispered, "I was afraid of this one." He picked it up. The postmark was from 7 years ago. It had been opened. Then carefully resealed. Michael looked at her. "You read it?" Grace nodded. "When?" Her voice broke. "Before our wedding." The room changed. Everything changed again. Michael stared at the envelope, and the silence between them became its own kind of betrayal. Michael held the letter like it breathed. 7 years ago, he had written to Grace during the 13 days they were apart. Apologies. Explanations. Please from a younger man who believed love could still be saved if he found the right words. But this envelope was different. He knew the coffee stain near the corner, shaped like a moon. What was in this one, he asked. Grace looked at the fire. I can't tell it better than you wrote it. Michael opened the envelope. The paper trembled in his hands. Grace. If you still want me after everything I've ruined, meet me at the church on Friday. Not for a wedding. Just for the truth. I love you, but I am scared I will become the kind of husband who is present in photographs and absent in rooms. My father was that kind of man. I think I learned silence from him. If you marry me, I need you to know I will fail you sometimes. Not because I don't love you, but because I don't always know how to stay open when I feel ashamed. I will try. I will tell you when I'm afraid. I will ask when you are quiet. I will not let us become polite strangers who call their distance peace. And if that is not enough, I will let you go. Michael stopped reading. He could not continue. Because he had written the warning before the marriage began. He had named the exact way he would fail her. Then he had failed her anyway. Grace's voice was barely audible. Ryan gave me that letter 2 days before the wedding. Michael looked up. He said you wrote it but changed your mind. He said it proved you weren't sure about marrying me. And you believed him. I was 24, she whispered. Terrified. In love. Proud. I read your fear as doubt because I was afraid too. Michael looked back at the letter. Why didn't you ask me? Grace's eyes filled. Because you came to the church Friday. He remembered. She had been there in a blue dress. He had thought it meant forgiveness. She had thought he was choosing the wedding despite uncertainty. But the question remained under the promise like a crack in the foundation. Grace pointed to the final paragraph. Michael read it. If we marry, promise me one thing. If either of us feels alone, we say it before loneliness learns to speak for us. He sat down. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Michael asked, why show me now? Because I blamed Ryan for everything, Grace said. It was easier. He lied. He manipulated us. He wanted me. All of that is true. She wiped her face. But I read this letter. I knew you wanted to talk. Instead, I walked into marriage pretending certainty was the same as trust. Michael closed the letter carefully. And the kiss? I can't make it clean, she said. I wanted to expose him. But I also wanted to feel chosen by someone who had spent years wanting me. That is ugly, but true. Do you love him? No. Did you? I loved being wanted by him. That is not the same thing. But it was dangerous. The honesty hurt. But for the first time, it did not feel like another performance. Michael walked to the window. The lake outside was black and still. What happened to Ryan? Grace came beside him but kept distance between them. I don't know. His sister says he left the state. He mailed the hard drive before he disappeared. Michael almost asked if she missed him. He did not want the answer. The 2 cups of tea had gone cold. Michael picked up his coat. Grace did not stop him. At the door, he turned. Why were there 2 cups? Grace looked at the table. One for you, she said. And the other? She hesitated. That hesitation again. Then she said, for the man I hoped you might still be. Michael placed the brass key on the table. Don't wait for him, he said. He might not come back. Grace nodded, tears falling silently. Michael stepped outside into air cold enough to hurt. He walked to his car, opened the door, and sat behind the wheel. Through the kitchen window, he saw Grace standing by the table, one hand resting on the letter. He started the engine. Then stopped. Beside the passenger seat was something that had not been there before. A folded note. Not Grace's handwriting. Ryan's. He opened it. You still don't know who sent the first video. He looked up at the house. Grace was no longer at the window. The front door opened slowly. A figure stood in the light. Michael could not tell whether it was Grace or someone standing behind her. And that is where the story ends. Not because every truth had been revealed, but because some marriages do not end with a signature, a confession, or a final goodbye. Some end with a man sitting in the dark, holding one more secret in his hands, wondering whether love can survive the truth, or whether the truth was only waiting for the right moment to finish what betrayal began.